Discovering Chinese dramas in 2018 opened up a whole new world of Asian dramas to me, and I've been hooked ever since. 4 years later, Tea and Soju was born, so that I can extend my love of Chinese dramas and Asian dramas in general to others out there and find a community. So, sit back and let's chat Asian dramas. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and it is the 1 year anniversary of Tea and Soju. I cannot believe I'm saying that because this started as a little pet project of mine, and now I feel like I've met so many new people online through the podcast and listeners and, just great people that I've met along the way, and it's become like way bigger than I ever thought it was going to be. So yeah, it's a little bit wild that I'm saying that it is the 1 year anniversary, but it's been a full year, and on top of that, this is the 50th episode for Tea and Soju. When I started it, I think so Tea and Soju kind of started as a little, out of a place because a year and a half ago, barely anybody talked about Chinese dramas in general. And I have always loved Chinese dramas. I have always seen so much potential in them. And I think now it seems like everybody's talking Chinese dramas all of a sudden, with the rising popularity of some dramas like Love Between Fairy and Devil and Hidden Love and Till the End of the Moon. Those big dramas that have sort of been hitting the scene lately. And it seems like everybody, out there is talking way more Chinese dramas, which is exciting, also worrying sometimes, but it is exciting. And what I mean by worrying is I worry that some people will come in and sort of not necessarily know Chinese dramas in general and just kind of like jump in and there's a lot of difference between a Chinese drama and a Korean drama, and I hope people kind of take the time to appreciate what's there, if that makes sense. But anyways, we're not going to go down that road. Today, what are we doing today? It's quite exciting. So a couple of weeks ago, I sort of asked all over on my socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of those socials, and asked, what questions do you guys want me to answer? Like any questions, any burning questions that you have. And you guys came back in force, and this will be a Q&A episode, which I'm really excited to do. It's kind of one of those episodes that I get to sit down and just kind of like click record and go with it. And that's kind of what I do most of the time, but a lot of the time I do have a couple of notes, whereas this time I don't. And I tried to kind of almost not read most of the questions just because I kind of wanted to go in a little bit blind and kind of, just answer as, spare of the moment. And yeah, that is what we're doing today. This will also be, this is the 50th episode, and this will be the last episode for season 1. That is it. I am going on a little break. Guys, I definitely need it. I'm feeling a little bit burnt out in terms of, I don't know, a lot has been happening. Life and just, everything's been happening. So I kind of want to take out a little break. I feel like this is a good time to pause it. I almost didn't because I feel like everybody's excited about Chinese dramas and I almost didn't want to pause the podcast, but after, in the wise words of Jess from the day back, you need your rest. You can't be doing everything if you don't rest. So that is what we'll be doing. It won't be very long. I don't know. I actually don't know how long it'll be, but it'll probably be throughout the month of September, and I will probably be back by October. So I'll probably be taking a month-long break, and in that time, I'll still be actually working on the podcast. I won't be putting any active episodes out, but I will be doing, planning for season 2, and I'm really excited. There's lots of great things that I've got in mind for season 2, but I kind of just want that little time to sort of plan it and get it in, ready. And also, there are a few guest episodes where I'm guesting on other podcasts, so, you will still be hearing from me. And all of my socials, I will still very much be, very active on the socials. So follow me on all of those. Everything's always linked in the description. And I will still be very much posting on Patreon. I've kind of taken a little break from Patreon, but throughout the time that I'm away from the main podcast, I will be posting quite a lot more over there in terms of I will be dumping a load of movie reviews that I've kind of been holding back. So that is all going to be on there. If you want to support the podcast and you enjoy it, go and check that out. I will definitely be posting way more regularly over there. And that is it. I'm very excited to do this. So shall we jump in and answer some questions from you guys? I completely forgot to ask, and this was quite bad, so I won't be naming anybody because for the simple reason that I completely forgot to sort of ask if people wanted to be named or not, or remain anonymous. Anonymous, that's the word I was going for. So I'm just going to go with I won't be naming anybody and just kind of I'm sure you know what questions you answered. So the first question that it kind of is a not a rambling, but it's kind of runs into each other, and it asks, who are you, where are you from, and what do you do, how did you fall for Asian dramas? So I'm pretty easy. I'm Liliana, and actually this is quite funny. I posted something about, so last week I didn't release an episode, and this is to do with the question that, where are you from? Because I said it's been really sunny in the UK, so I kind of want to, enjoy the sunshine, and just kind of didn't get around to doing the episode. And basically I got quite a few messages back from listeners going, you're in the UK? How did I not know you're in the UK? And I thought that was, quite amusing. But yes, so I do live in the UK, but I'm not originally from the UK. I was born and raised for, quite a bit of my life in Portugal. That's where I'm originally from. And yes, I am fluent in both English and Portuguese. I did my high school in the UK. So I moved to the UK when I was 10 years old, and I did most of my high school in the UK. That's why I don't really have, I kind of sound British in a sense, or I sound English. I don't really have much of an accent in terms of, I don't know how to explain, but sometimes foreigners can have when you're speaking a foreign language, you can have an accent. I kind of didn't pick that up because I learned it very, very young. But I am also very much fluent in Portuguese. That is my mother tongue, my, first language. And actually a lot of the time I can very much express myself way better in Portuguese than I can in English, that being my first language. But I am fluent in both, and I can very easily switch between both languages. It's a lot of fun to do. My brain just goes whichever language it fancies. So very much bilingual, very much, grew up in both countries. I then went sort of back to Portugal for a couple of years when I turned 18. And then came back to the UK a couple of years later, and have been settled in the UK for quite a while now. So yeah, that is where I'm from in terms of, I am originally from Portugal, but I do live in the UK currently. Although I will say, I don't know, my mum moved to the UK when I was younger, and that's, why. And I just keep asking her, why couldn't it have been somewhere where it's warmer? My Mediterranean DNA does not deal well with the UK weather. It never has, and I don't think it quite ever will. But it is what it is, and yeah, so what was my phone? Right, so how did you fall for Asian dramas? That was another question. So basically, I kind of always been very much a lover of fantasy. I read a lot. Not as much nowadays. Actually, I use a lot of audiobooks. But when I was, 16, 18, throughout those ages, 13, 14, I gravitated towards books a lot, and I love like urban fantasy and those types of books, and just fantasy in general. I've always been a lover of fantasy, and I used to read a heck of a lot. And basically I used to watch American shows like Arrow and that sort of stuff, where, you know, multiverse sort of fantasy heroes, that type of thing. Anyways, fast forward a little bit, and my partner, actually, he kind of introduced me to anime, and I used to watch anime on Netflix. And I think, so December 2018, I remember this vividly, but December 2018, I get a week off. My workplace shuts for Christmas. Up until, and it doesn't reopen until New Year's. So we get like a week off. Now, most of my family like work throughout that week, so I tend to like hang out at home because it's rainy and cold and snowy and just horrible weather. So it's great for being at home and being cozy. So I sort of like was flipping through Netflix and couldn't really find anything to pique my interest. But because I had watched a bunch of like fantasy anime and, you know, just fantasy shows, I suppose, they kind of suggested that I try out Ashes of Love. So Ashes of Love came up, and I was like, well, that's intriguing. And it looked really pretty. It looked completely different to anything I'd kind of watched, but it also looked very intriguing in terms of like fantasy and stuff. And basically I dove head in and I binged the heck out of Ashes of Love in like 3 days. I kid you not. There was one point where I stayed up until 7 in the morning watching this drama. And then I went to sleep and woke up 3 hours later, couldn't really sleep anymore. So I went right back to watching. And I was like, this is great. I haven't done this in a while. I used to do that when I was younger with like books at the weekend. I would just stay up till ridiculous o'clock reading, and that's what I felt like that drama was at that point in time. It was like, you know, I was watching one of my books on screen almost, and it was so engaging that I could, you know, I didn't really need to sleep almost. I could just binge it right through. So that's how it started. And then like Netflix would churn out more things for me to watch. So then after that, I ended up watching Love 020, which, you know, looking back on it now, is it a great drama? Is it? I'm not sure it is. But at the time, you know, everything was so new and so fresh to me that I loved everything. And then after that, it kind of like churned out Strong Woman Do Bong Soon. And, you know, the rest is history. And then K-dramas came, and that's it. That's how I kind of find my way into Asian dramas. So the next question is, what do you like in Chinese, Japanese, Korean dramas? Now, I have sort of mentioned this before. I go to different countries for different things. So if I want youth or if I want fantasy, I'm going to Chinese dramas. You know, hands down Chinese dramas. If I want something that's, you know, found family, that sort of thing, K-dramas tend to do that pretty well. So I kind of like that in K-dramas. For Japanese dramas, I don't watch a heck of a lot of them. They're kind of more, how to explain, for me they're kind of like more raw in a sense. So yeah, if I want like a crazy drama to watch and kind of like just lose myself in something that's so wild, I would probably go to Thai dramas, Lakorns specifically, which are kind of like almost Thai telenovelas in a sense. So that's, I quite enjoy. Those are kind of like my guilty pleasures in a sense. So yeah, that's what I like about, you know, what I go for in, you know, those. Now, if we're talking about specifics of what I enjoy, I don't know what it is. There's a certain type of storytelling that I really enjoy in Asian dramas. And I think now now it's not just the Asian drama specifically, but it's also like the community that's kind of like I found with Asian dramas, if that makes sense. So I have a lot of fun with people that I've met, and I get to talk Asian dramas with. So that makes it even more exciting. So yeah, I think, you know, storytelling and acting and just a whole world of new culture and new things that I don't get to see in everyday life. For me, I think that's some of the things that are appealing to me in, you know, Asian dramas in general. So I'm sorry about that. There is apparently a shouting match outside my house. I think it's stopped now. Okay. Sorry if you could hear that. Anyways, next question. Do you have people in real life you can share your love of Asian dramas with? I do. I am one of those people that is very lucky to have friends in real life that I can talk about, you know, dramas with. One of them, she'll know exactly who she is. So actually, I met, her name's Lauren. Hi, Lauren, if you're listening. So Lauren and I kind of met in college a whole while ago, like 12 years ago. Is it 12, 14 years ago? It's been a while, guys. And actually, Lauren's been in this game way longer than I have. But we kind of like lost track of each other when I went back to Portugal and all of that. And funnily enough, we kind of met, you know, kind of started chatting again because I think it's like it showed mutual interest. I got into BTS at the time. She's a BTS fan as well. And basically it kind of like showed that we were both interested in the BTS pages. And that's how we started talking again and, you know, getting back into way more touch. So it's quite funny because Lauren and I tend to have very different tastes when it comes to Asian dramas. But she will still very gladly listen to all of my yapping, and I'm very thankful for her doing so. But I also feel like, you know, I've come to find people that although I haven't met in real life, I feel like I have, if that makes sense. And you guys have heard me talk about them, you know, Jess from the day back. Like, me and her get on like a house on fire. So I haven't met her in real life, but I feel like I have, and I feel like we've been friends forever. So, you know, there's other people that I kind of, you know, haven't met face to face, but I feel like I have. And I am very lucky that I do have lots of people that I can turn to that will talk to me and kind of like we feed on each other's obsession for Asian dramas, which is great. It's great to have. And that's kind of like what I want to sort of like provide for people in terms of if they don't have that, then they can, you know, come chat to me. And that's cool. I am more than happy to talk to anybody about, you know, Asian dramas, because I know not everybody's quite as lucky as me and, you know, gets to experience that in real life. So at least we can do it virtually. And I feel like that's, you know, still a great thing. So next question, how do you plan your podcasts? Now, this is a fun question in terms of half of the time I kind of don't. So I'm very a fly on the moment kind of thing. It's funny, when I first started the podcast, and if you have been listening from day one, you will know that I kind of sounded way more stilted than I do now. And that's because I used to write down every single word that I would say in the podcast. And I realized that simply does not work for me. I am a talker. I love to talk in general. And that kind of works for me when it comes to podcasting. I kind of like, nowadays, all I'll do is, you know, throughout week, month, whatever, episodes will just pop into my head. Like I'm watching something or I'm doing something. I'm like, oh, this would be good as a podcast episode, or this would be good as a podcast episode. And I actually have like a note on my phone, on my notes app. And basically I just write down like podcast episode ideas and I pull from that. And then at the beginning of the month, I just kind of like write those into a calendar to like where I will release each episode. And then half the time I record like 2 days before the episode gets released, or even the day of or the night before, because I don't really like to edit. I don't like any of that business. So I literally sit down and talk and hope for the best. And that's literally, as far as I get. And then in terms of planning, all I really do is I will have the episode and I will write down like notes. So if I'm talking about a specific drama, then I will write down, characters' names. I will write down actors' names, places it's filmed, dates, directors, that sort of thing. I write all of that down because I know I'm not going to remember that. And because like even if you go on MDL, like that information is sort of all over the place. And if I'm having to search for it, it kind of like breaks the flow of me just sitting down and talking. So I write all of that info down. But that is, I know, wild, but I don't really have a specific plan. I kind of just go with the flow and see what feels right. Sometimes it hits. I think it does because you guys are still listening. So that tends to be how I work. Next question. What is the most loved drama that you hate? Now, hate is I feel like a strong word, but actually we were talking about this yesterday, and I'm sure all of you out there, or most of you, this is a very unpopular opinion, and I don't know if I'm going to lose listeners over this, but either way, I think for me, it has to be the Korean drama Goblin. I have tried to watch this drama. I think I got to like episode 4, episode 5, and I just found it very boring and not necessarily to my taste. So I dropped it. I let it go. But that is, I know, a very, very, very popular drama, but it just isn't quite for me. And that's cool too. We all have a different tastes. We all have, our likes and dislikes. If we all like the same thing, it would be very, very boring. So, I think for Korean drama, that's probably my most unpopular opinion. For Chinese dramas, I don't know. Maybe Falling Into Your Smile. Like, I don't necessarily hate it, but I feel like it's very, 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 very overhyped for what it is. So, that's probably my other one. And another question, which drama is your shelter? Now, I don't really rewatch dramas, so I have comfort dramas that I'll go back to and watch like scenes from. I think the most recent one would be Hidden Love. Like I adore that drama to a fault. I really, really do. But others would probably be Go Ahead, Meet Yourself. Those are very, very comforting dramas to me, and I feel comforted when I watch them. So that's probably what I would call, my shelter in terms of dramas. Now, next question would be, where do hang on this is a fun question. How exactly do you manage to watch all of these shows? Time management tips. Now, guys, I don't sleep that much, so that probably, does help. Now, a couple of tips is, and I know this isn't for everybody, but some shows, not every show, but some shows I will actually watch on a 1.25 speed, and that, like, you barely notice it, but it does actually speed up the episodes a lot of the time. So also in the UK, as I've explained before, it rains a lot and the weather is not that great. And if it's raining, I will probably just stay inside most of the time anyways. So in terms of also, like, I I have become very apt at dropping dramas. If it isn't working for me, I let them go. And then I prioritize what I really want to watch. Also, watching so many is probably because I watch a lot of on-air dramas, and that makes a heck of a difference. Like, if you're watching, if you're watching a show and you've got to watch, 2 episodes a day, for 3 days a week, then it's a lot easier than like binging a 40-episode drama or whatever it may be. So I think that makes a heck of a difference to, how I specifically watch. Apart from that, like I said, I really don't sleep a lot, and I think I don't go out as much. I know that sounds terrible, but wintertime, summertime, I watch way less. Wintertime, like I said, it is rainy, it is cold, and I hate the cold and I hate the rain. So I stay inside and I watch dramas. So that is, I'm not really sure how else to time management in terms of that. So, next question, your favorite and least favorite genres. So, my favorite genres has got to be xianxia. Like, I love the heck out of xianxia, so that is one of my favorites. But also youth genre is like my comfort zone. Like, I absolutely adore youth dramas, specifically Chinese youth dramas. I feel like they just hit different, and I don't know what it is about them, but I could sit there and watch like 3, 4, 5 youth dramas back to back and not blink an eye. So, that is probably, those two are probably some of my favorite genres, although I will say I probably have watched most in the romance genre, like romance rom-com genre, and that's probably where I've watched the most, but favorite would be like xianxia and youth dramas, I think. Now, least favorite is probably horror. I am not like a horror person, and I don't think like crime thriller, I have to be in a very, very specific mood to want to like watch crime or thriller dramas. It's not that I don't enjoy them. I do. I just, I don't really watch them that often. So yeah, it's not necessarily a least favorite, but it's like, not up there. But horror will probably definitely be my least favorite. I don't really watch horror. It's not a genre that like calls to me or anything. That's why I haven't really watched dramas like All of Us Are Dead and Sweet Home and those sort of dramas. Although Sweet Home, it is on my plan to watch list, so, but yes, so your go-to drama rewatch. Now, I have already said I don't rewatch. I don't think I've ever like fully rewatched something from, episode 1 to finish without skipping here and there. That's just not something. Once I've like initially watched it, going back and rewatching, like I know the beats, I know what's gonna come, and that kind of like tears away a little bit what I want, that excitement of watching for me personally. So I don't really do rewatch. What I do is I love going back and like watching specific scenes. So Love Between Fairy and Devil, for example, episode 9, where he comes in and saves her. I've watched that scene multiple times. Till the End of the Moon, I've watched scenes specifically again and again. Hidden Love, for example, I have watched specific scenes over and over again. So those like dramas are dramas that I absolutely adore. So like my top rated dramas, I will go back and like rewatch scenes, or they'll pop up on my YouTube and I won't skip them. I will very happily rewatch. I have rewatched Ashes of Love scenes so many times. It's wild. I do actually want to do a series where I invite guests on to rewatch shows with me, but it has to be a rewatch for both of us, and we kind of like compare our initial thoughts to what we think on a rewatch and if that drama stands. Now, I am, both excited and a little worried about doing that as a series, specifically with a drama like, for example, Ashes of Love, because I freaking adore Ashes of Love, but I don't know if it's going to stand on a rewatch, and I don't want like my whole axis to kind of shift. So that's what I worry as well. Like, if it's a drama that I really, really loved, like, I worry going back to it if I'm gonna be as much in love, and then if I'm not, I feel like I'm gonna be losing a little something. So that's what I worry about a lot of the time when it comes to rewatches. So, you know, that's what I do. So, hit dramas that you have yet to check out or not your cup of tea. There is one big elephant in the room here, and I'm sure people who know me will be shouting this when they hear that question, and that is, I haven't actually watched 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms. So that is a huge Chinese drama, and it is one that I haven't really watched. And then there is big ones like Nirvana and tongue-tied over here, Nirvana in Fire and Joy of Life. Those two are very specific reasons why. They are quite politically heavy, and those tend to be dramas that I don't necessarily go for. Now, Joy of Life, I do want to watch it, but I was waiting for season 2 because I don't necessarily want to, you know, be waiting forever for season 2. So that is one reason. But yeah, I think the one that comes to head straight away of hit dramas that I have yet to check out is 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms. And yes, I know it's a big drama and everyone loves it. It is on my to watch list. There is something planned for it, so just hang in there, okay? So, yeah, so somebody said, in terms of linked to the question of your favourite and least favourite genres, what are some recommendations of something you've watched in the genres that I really enjoy? So, in xianxia, if I'm going xianxia, like entry-level beginner, if you've never really watched xianxia before, I would suggest something like The Starry Love or something like Love Between Fairy and Devil. Those are very... Oh, and Back from the Brink. Those are very, very, like, you know, beginner-friendly xianxias, I would say. They are, you know, 40 episodes or less. They are, you know, overall pretty well-paced, pretty good stories. So yeah, if you're a more hardcore xianxia watcher, Till the End of the Moon. Like, I love Till the End of the Moon. Another one that I really, really enjoy, but not a lot of people know about it, and it is called No Boundary. I really love that drama, but it doesn't get mentioned a lot for xianxia, actually. It kind of flies a little bit under the radar, but yeah. And then for youth, like, I don't know, I love youth, and I've watched so much. Like, some of my top are obviously Hidden Love, When I Fly Towards You, oh god, there's so many. And I actually have, so if you go on my TikTok, I have a like pinch video on my page, and it is like my favorite youth dramas, youth Chinese dramas. So I would check that video out, because, you know, that's where you know, where I go. So another interesting question, maybe a vague question, but as a mood watcher, do you have strategies to figure out what you're in the mood for? And what do you do if it changes mid-drama? Come back to it later, finish it, or drop it altogether? So, I am very much a mood watcher, and a lot of the time I'm in the mood for light stuff. And by that I mean like romance, you know, that sort of thing. Because life in general is tough, and like I've had like a pretty tough year in general. Like, personally, in personal life, I've had a hectic, you know, tough year. So when that happens, I want light stuff on my screen, stuff that will make me smile, stuff that will make me happy. So that's what I search for. Now, what I do is there's specific like actors or actresses that I will definitely check out their dramas regardless of genre, but I will not stick to the drama if I'm not enjoying it. Like, I will give it a couple of episodes. Depending on how long overall the drama is, I will give it a couple of episodes and see if I want to carry on or not. But overall, I kind of like, a lot of the time I jump from drama to drama. And my currently watching, like if you listen to my currently watching episodes, you'll know that I tend to have like different genres on that list. And then like it just depends day by day. Like I finish the day, I get home, you know, I do whatever I need to do. And then when I sit down to watch dramas, I'm like, I'll flip through. And then like if that's hitting, I'll watch it. If not, I'll pause it there and go watch something else. Now, I used to be really bad at dropping. Like I would not drop anything. And then in the last 2 years, and now even more so, having the podcast and kind of like wanting to watch a lot of stuff in general, but having less time to do so, I have become like way more selective. If I'm not enjoying it, I drop it. It's as easy as that. And the reason why I've also found this, it's because I am doing like my on hold list challenge, and I've realized that I've had dramas on there like on hold for a year. And it's wild because by this point, I don't remember what the heck the drama was about. And like some of them, I'm like 7 episodes in and I'm like, I don't remember what happened. So I either go back, check out a couple of episodes. If I'm not liking it, then I drop it, because I've realized that putting dramas on hold does not work for me. They end up sitting there for eons and I don't necessarily go back to them. This is why also I prefer on-air dramas. I feel like I'm either going to sit down and binge a drama in one go, like completely, or I'm going to watch them on air. Like, that's the only 2 options for me. I don't necessarily like watching dramas like a little bit here, a little bit there. It just doesn't work for me that well. And yeah, if I get like quite behind on a drama, I tend to like not go back to it. It's a habit of mine. It's a weird habit, but yeah, that's what I do. You know, to figure out what I'm in the mood for, a lot of the time I literally just flick through drama from drama and see what hits and see what lands, and then like go from there. So yeah. So next question. What was your first C drama, and should I watch Love Between Fairy and Devil? Now, I've already sort of mentioned my first Chinese, you know, C drama was Ashes of Love, epic Shansha. Now, should you watch Love Between Fairy and Devil? Yes, like resounding yes. I loved Love Between Fairy and Devil. And for me, it was such an unexpected drama because I wasn't a Wang Hedi fan at all. Actually, I didn't think he really could act before that drama. Yu Su-shin, I thought she was okay. She was very cutesy, very this, very that. I didn't think very much of her as an actress. And then I watched Love Between Fairy and Devil, and there's just something magical about that drama. It just bloody works. So I would definitely, I'm very biased because I really did love it. But I feel like it's something that's very easy to watch. So yes, definitely check out Love Between a Fairy and a Devil. So I have a question, and this is a question that I'm pretty excited. I don't know. I'm very excited for this question, but also I have no idea how to answer it, because it says, if you could visit the universe of a series, which one could it be? Which one would it be? Could be Xianxia, contemporary, or anything, but you could go and experience that world for a little while. I love this question. I feel like that's such a fun question. Now, it's really hard for me to answer because I feel like I've loved so many dramas. Now, I absolutely adore, like, for example, Till the End of the Moon. Now, would I necessarily want to go visit? Maybe not. Not when, you know, a devil god is about to destroy the whole world. Certainly not then. But if I were to visit, so what I'm going to do is, because I can't decide between which ones, I'm gonna choose a couple and be greedy, because why not? So if the first one of the very first ones that comes to mind when I read this question is Go Ahead. Like, I just want to go and sit with that family and eat noodle dad's noodles. That's all I want to do. And like hear about their day and, have a conversation with them. That's like, I loved that family unit so much. And I feel like Noodle Dad shows his love through his food. So I would love to just go and sit down with them as a family and kind of like have a meal. And I feel like that would be so much fun, but also very... what's the word I'm looking for? Like very recharging and very like comforting. So that's, I would love to do that. I would love to visit, worlds, any Shansha that I've watched, Love Between Fairy and Devil or The Starry Love or, Till the End of the Moon. But caveat, when they're at peace, when everything's said and done, the wars have been fought and all of that, then I would love to visit any of those worlds. But, I would love to be able to go through the worlds, as in I would love to be able to go through and visit like the demon realm and visit like the mortal realm and visit the heavenly realm. I would love to do that. And with that, I don't necessarily need it to be like a specific world, but just any world. I feel like that would be so much fun, but also so like invigorating and new, because you would never be able to experience that anywhere but in Chinese dramas. So yeah, I think those would have to be my choices. Now, this is hard because I would love to just go and see Duan Jiashu and, Sang-Zi in Hidden Love, and hang out with their family and their friends. But Go Ahead just kind of like has my whole heart and always will. So if I was to just choose one contemporary drama to go and visit, I just want to go and sit with, the Go Ahead family and eat noodles. That's like, I feel like that would be such a lovely place to go and hang out and do. So, another question, which series was the biggest disappointment for you? Oh, there's been a few. There's been quite a few. Now, I don't really talk about, dramas that I dropped, and I've said this quite a few times. I don't necessarily like to talk about things that I dropped because I don't want to like negatively impact anybody that wants to try those dramas. But one that I feel like was a disappointment for me, and it's a pretty recent one, is The Longest Promise, starring Xiao Zhan and Ren Min. Now, I don't know what it was about that drama. It's Shansha and it's Xiao Zhan. Like, it had, two of my favorite things in it, but for some reason, it just didn't quite work for me. And that was a little sad because, I feel like I really, really, really wanted to love it, but it just quite wasn't for me. In general, I don't know what it was that it didn't, click with me, but it didn't. And, that's probably one. There's a few more, I suppose, but that's the one that kind of like jumps out at me, is, The Longest Promise. Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't be for anybody, for everybody else, but it just didn't personally work for me specifically. So, yeah. So we are now just trundling down to the last couple of questions. And one of the questions that I had someone ask was helpful knowledge for people new to Chinese dramas. Now, this is quite relative in terms of where you're coming from. So if you're coming from a K-drama background, then things are going to be very, very different. One of the things that I say straight away is try not to compare Korean dramas to Chinese dramas. I know it's quite difficult to do because that's what you've been watching. But I think once we start directly comparing, it kind of like, I don't know, but it can be of a disservice to either country because, Korean dramas have their strengths and their weaknesses, just like Chinese dramas have their strengths and their weaknesses. And I think that directly comparing can lead to like disappointment at the end of the day. So I try to not directly do so. So, yeah, that's one of the things. I would say the first couple of things that are, very, very obvious would probably be the dubbing. And that's something that people always pick up on is like, why are Chinese dramas dubbed? Why this, And I think one of the reasons is you have to think Mandarin is, there's standard Mandarin, but there's lots and lots of dialects within China, and from area to area, the way that people speak is very different. And one of the rules, or one of the things for dramas to obtain a airing license, to pass censorship and obtain an airing license, is there has to be a certain level of Mandarin, and not a lot of dialects are allowed or anything like that, so it has to be standard Mandarin. Now, some actors, their Mandarin may not be good enough, or, their tone may not match the character. A very obvious thing that I go for example, is to try and explain a little bit of that aspect is, for example, Love Between Fairy and Devil. Wang Hedi, the male lead, Dylan Wang, he is, I believe, 24. He has a 24-year-old voice, and, he's still working on his acting, still working on, improving and whatnot, but his voice is still very much of a 24-year-old. Now, does it match a 30,000-year-old character? It doesn't. And his accent is his dialect is quite a thick one, so you wouldn't necessarily buy the character, if that were to be Wang Hedi's real voice. So in that case, when you bring in someone, that is a voice actor, that is their job, is to be, their voice is their tool, their voice is their profession. Now, they will be very experienced, and they will be able to get, the line delivery and all of that pretty good within 1 or 2 takes. Whereas if you're, an actor or an actress who doesn't work or is still actively working on line delivery and all of that, you're probably going to take a couple more takes, and that all means money. And the companies are possibly not willing to go that way. So, funnily enough, there was actually another rule put into censorship, where if the actor or actress isn't up to level or up to par to the dubbing that needs to be done for the drama, and a voice actor has to be called in, then the actor or the actress actually has to pay for that voice actor or actress to come in and do the dubbing. So that was an interesting choice. Now, I do feel like contemporary dramas more and more are using actors and actresses' real voices, because if it's set in a modern day China, they are able to probably show a little bit more wide variety of dialects. Is that the case for historical dramas? I don't think it is. I think historical dramas will still very much be, dubbed for a long while, just because, a lot of them are filmed in, I think it's called Hengdian Studios, whereas like 10 studios all on one plot. So you could have like 3 dramas being recorded at the same time, and the audio that you're going to get from a place like that is just not going to be doable. So you're going to have to like do audio in post-production. And, actors and actresses, especially in Chinese dramas, they will jump from one project into the next with barely any time between them. They may record, like your top Chinese actors and actresses, they may be recording 3 dramas in a year back to back to back. That's something that isn't probably as common in Korean dramas, for example. Although then the biggest thing I would say as well has to be censorship. You have to take censorship into account. Every single Chinese drama is censored, and that means they have to follow a very strict set of rules put in place by the board, and the Chinese government. And if you do not follow those rules, you simply don't air. It's as simple as that. You need to pass censorship to obtain an airing license to be able to go on air. That is the obvious, and there's so many rules that have to be followed. At one point aliens weren't allowed in dramas, at one point reincarnation isn't allowed. There's just a lot of things that aren't allowed, and that means that sometimes stories may not necessarily make sense, or they may have to be changed to be able to fit censorship rules. I think one of the most common ones that has happened now is the amount of episodes. So Chinese dramas, specifically historical and xianxia dramas, they could probably go up to 60 or 70 episodes even. Ashes of Love, for example, is 63 episodes. So, that isn't going to happen nowadays. There has been a rule put into place where dramas must be 40 episodes or below, and if they are above 40 episodes, they must be split 6 months apart. Now, that was the rule about 3 months ago. Since then, it has changed again, and it has to be 40 episodes of 45 minutes or less. It cannot exceed 45 minutes per episode. And if it has more than 40 episodes and 2 seasons are required, then season 2 cannot air within 12 months of season 1 finishing. So that's a new rule put into place, which means, dramas are restructuring and becoming shorter so that they can fit that. Now, the problem with this is, so Chinese dramas will be filmed, it takes about anywhere between 3 to 6 months to record a drama, depending on what type of drama it is. If it's a modern drama, if it's a xianxia drama, if it's, longer drama, shorter drama, it depends on a lot of things. Location, where are you recording, that sort of thing. So it can take anything between 3 to 6 months, and they'll do that, and then they'll go into post-production, and then after post-production they'll be sent off to be approved. If it's not approved, it's bounced back, it's edited, it's whatever, and then back to approval. Once it's approved, it gets a airing license, it obtains like a green light almost, and then that's ready to be aired. Now, there's dramas that won't air for another year, or 2 years. They may be sitting on the shelf for a really long time before a platform decides to air them. Do we know why? I have no clue. There's no rhyme or reason to why it happens. But that's something that's very, very different. So you may be so when a drama kind of announces their cast, it does what it's called a booting ceremony. And you'll see pictures of all the cast and the director standing by a camera and kind of like peeling a red sort of piece of fabric off the camera. And that's, a booting ceremony for the show. And it means, here's the official cast. This is, this drama. It's happening. That is like your first official insight into that drama after, you've been told the, rights for the book have been bought, that sort of thing. So that's kind of like your first look. And then like from that point to the point a drama is on your screen, it can be anything between 1 to 2 to 3 to even more years. Like, it's crazy. It truly is crazy. So we're living on the edge as a Chinese drama watcher, because that's one of the biggest differences as well that we don't often talk about. With a Korean drama, you get a date, and that date is that date. That drama will air on that date. And, they will probably announce that a Korean drama is coming out like 3-4 months in advance, maybe. I don't know. But they will give you like a pretty fairly decent, time of release between, announcing the date and the actual release of the drama. Chinese dramas just simply don't work like that. Like, sometimes they will tell you the day of the drama premiering. Oh, here it is. It's starting today. And that's how Chinese dramas roll. Like, sometimes they'll tell you 2 days beforehand. Sometimes they'll tell you a week beforehand. Sometimes they just airdrop the whole drama in one go. Like, that's what I mean when I say Chinese drama watchers live on the edge, because we just never know when something is coming our way. And even when you get an airing date, until that drama is on your screen, don't trust it. That's my piece of advice. Until you physically press play, don't trust it. And even then, the most drama that comes to mind is a drama from the platform Youku, and it's called I Am Nobody, and that started airing, and it aired, I believe, 4 or 6 episodes, and then it just stopped airing. And it hasn't come back, and we don't know if or when it's coming back. So, Chinese drama watchers, we're living on the edge constantly. But yeah, I think that's like the main things. I do actually have an episode called C-Drama 101. I think it's like the 3rd episode I ever did. But I'm thinking for the new season, I actually want to redo that episode, because I feel like there's so many more Chinese drama watchers now that I actually want to redo that episode. But with a twist of, I actually want to ask listeners, what would they like to know? Like, what is, as new Chinese drama watchers, what are your questions? And I'd love to answer them. Let me know if that's something you would actually want to listen to. If it's something that you find would be helpful, let me know, because unless I actually know people want to listen, I tend to maybe not put those ideas out there. But if this is something that you guys would like to listen to and you think it'd be a really good episode, then let me know. Send me some encouragement for it and I will make it happen. So that was that question. Another question that I had was about the platforms. So on Netflix, you do get some Chinese dramas, but Netflix never actually launched in China, so it buys the rights to air some Chinese dramas, but there isn't as many on there as, other platforms. So your go-to, if you're a beginner, I would say, for Chinese dramas, I would start with Viki, just because Viki, you have a wide variety of dramas from all of the Chinese platforms. Now, if we're talking Chinese drama platforms specifically, I would say there is, 4 main ones. So those would be Tencent. Now, Tencent is like the mother company, I would say. So Tencent is Tencent in the States, but in Europe it's WeTV, and I believe the reason they didn't call it WeTV over in the States is because there's already an app or something that is called WeTV, so they just went with the mother name and called it Tencent over there. But it is the same thing. Tencent, WeTV. It's just that WeTV is for Europe and Tencent is for the States. So that's one of the platforms. And then you have iQIYI, and that is spelled IQIYI, but it is it's pronounced iQIYI. And that is, for me personally, one of my favorite platforms. I do have subscriptions to all of these, but I tend to try and catch them. They do really, really good sales for yearly subscriptions. So I'm actually subscribed for iQIYI for I've been subscribed for a year and a half, because they kind of if you renew it, they just kind of top up your subscription, if that makes sense, which is really good. So iQIYI, and then you have Youku and Mango TV. Now, I will caveat, I don't like Mango TV. They basically auto-translate a lot of their things, so their subs are trash, and if I can avoid it, I will, and I will go, pretty much elsewhere. I feel like those are like the four big companies in terms of Chinese dramas. These companies, the difference also is, so they will produce the dramas and distribute them on their own platforms as well. So something like, for example, Studio Dragon will work a lot with TVN, but like TVN won't distribute their dramas outside of Korea, if that makes sense. And Netflix often does that. But for Chinese dramas, that's not the case. Like, these companies, they come from very, very, very big conglomerates. So they are not necessarily short on money, and they don't need that investment from outside places. A lot of the times, I think the advantage that Chinese dramas have is that they are created for Chinese people. Like, their platform, their main audience is China, and it is a huge amount of people and amount of audience they can gain from China alone. So they don't necessarily have to cater to outside international fans, although they are starting to do so more often. Aichi, Youku actually didn't even have an international app until about a year ago. So, they are starting to kind of like branch out and do that. But Netflix, for example, what we've been seeing, for example, with Netflix investing a lot of money in Korean dramas, that I don't think, now I'll never say never, but I find that very, very hard to see that happening with Chinese dramas, just because, first of all, Netflix never even launched in China. But, these big platforms are already very, very settled, and they know what they're doing. They're not necessarily going to be looking for outsiders to sort of come in and, do that. So those are the four platforms, I think. So that will be Tencent/WeTV, Aichi, Youku, and Mango TV. But as a beginner, I would highly suggest to start with Viki. They tend to get, not every single one, but they do tend to get a lot of their, dramas from all over the place. And actually, for Chinese dramas, I highly suggest using YouTube. Youku specifically, not necessarily Aichi, but Youku and WeTV, even Mango TV, but Mango TV, awful subs. But Youku and WeTV, they tend to actually upload a lot of their dramas for free on YouTube on their own, channels. It just takes a little bit longer for them to release it free, but they do tend to release most of their dramas on there as well. So actually, there is a lot of Chinese dramas just available on YouTube. So that's, another good resource to sort of use. But that is, that answer, that question there. And I think we're down to the last two questions now. And one of them is, would you ever consider a permanent co-host? Now, this is quite a fun question. I love doing the guest episodes, just because I feel like it's really fun to sort of bounce back and forth ideas between two people or three people or however many guests you have. Would I consider a permanent co-host? I would, on the caveat that I would probably do it like have the co-host for 2 episodes out of 4, if that makes sense. So in a month, I would do 2 episodes by myself and 2 episodes with a co-host. And the reason why I don't think I would do every single episode with a co-host is logistics, mainly logistics. Time zones are annoying to get around, and I really love the freedom of, being able to record the night before having to release an episode, for example, and not having to worry about, planning all of those recording sessions in advance, or making sure that, I block out a good few hours at a certain time to be able to do that. I feel like it's more the logistics of it that I wouldn't enjoy as much. So I would love to have a co-host, but only for like half a month, if that would make sense, because I feel like being able to do, to plan 2 episodes with a co-host is easy enough. Whereas if you rely on a co-host for every single episode throughout the month, I feel like it's a little bit harder to sort of logistically kind of, organize everything. And as a person who kind of like loves doing podcasting on the fly, if that makes sense, I feel like I would get a little bit bogged down by that. But, and also if it was, to come to a place where I would have a co-host, it had to be somebody that I would gel with really well, and that we'd have really good banter, and that we'd just have fun talking to each other, because otherwise I don't think it would work necessarily. At the end of the day, like, podcasting and talking about Asian dramas and whatnot is a hobby. I wish it wasn't. I wish this was my full-time job, but unfortunately it is a hobby. And for it to continue to be a hobby, you kind of have to keep enjoying what you're doing. And it is like an act of love and labor, because at the end of the day, it takes a heck of a lot of effort. All my fellow podcasters and, just Asian drama content creators out there will relate in what I'm saying, that it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to do, podcast episodes or, create blogs or anything like that. It takes time and it takes effort. So you have to really enjoy what you're doing. So I would hate to like have a co-host that I wasn't gelling with and it became no longer fun for me to do. So, that would be my 2 caveats. Yes, I would definitely, consider having a permanent co-host, with the 2 caveats that A, it has to be somebody that I absolutely adore chatting with and we gel and, just have a lot of fun together. And B, that it would probably be like a 2 episode thing, as opposed to 2 episodes out of 4 in a month, as opposed to the 4 episodes in a month. I think that would be like the only thing I would say. So yeah, that's the answer to that question. And then very final question is, and I feel like I left specifically this one till the end because I feel like it's a really good question to end on, but it is, where do you see you and the podcast going in a year or 2 years, etc.? I honestly don't know, because I feel like, even a year ago, I couldn't imagine where the podcast would be a year later. I honestly just thought a couple of people would tune in and I would talk about Asian dramas, and that would be it. That would be, that would be the extent of it. I never dreamed of, meeting so many people that I consider friends. I never dreamed of meeting listeners that I have so much fun talking to. I'm thinking of one specific listener. And it's quite fun because we sort of met through the podcast, and she's a listener, turns out, and she'll know who, she'll be listening and she'll know who I mean. But turns out that she's also Portuguese. And not only that, but she's from a area in Portugal that's very close to where I'm from. And I feel like that's such, like, I don't know, it's like, it felt so great to meet somebody who is from so close to home to where I'm from. And that's things we would have never met, if it wasn't for the podcast. So I feel like I've gained so much already. And, it all started by somebody just telling me, having a conversation and saying, and we were talking about how there wasn't much Chinese drama content available. And, somebody just said to me, why don't you start one? You watch plenty of them. Why don't you start a podcast about Chinese dramas? And thinking about that a year ago, and actually, although I released my first episode in August, I actually started planning the podcast all the way back in February, and then had like a good few months where I was just planning and like bouncing ideas off and, going back and forwards where I actually wanted to do this or not. So it took quite a while for me to even decide that I wanted to do it. And then I feel quite proud of myself that I've been like consistent with the podcast. For a whole year. That's not, a couple of months, that's a whole year. So I do actually feel very blessed that it's brought me so much fun and so much joy, and it still does. And I feel like that's why I want to keep doing the podcast for as long as I'm having fun with it. The moment it stops being fun, then I feel like that's when the joy of it will be seeped out and I will no longer want to do it. As of yet, that is no end in sight. Like, I have so much fun with it. And yes, there are days where I'm like, I really don't feel like recording. But as soon as I actually sit down and press record, I get talking and then I'm like, I'm right back into the groove of it. So, to answer the question, I honestly don't know. I probably should have like some goals or something for the podcast, but I don't. I just kind of like want to enjoy the ride of it and want to see where it takes me, in terms of listeners or whoever comes into my life because of the podcast. I just want to build I think my main thing is to build a community for people to just enjoy dramas, like safely and happily obsess together about dramas. At the end of the day, I feel like that's my main goal, is to like bring people together and make sure that there's somebody for you to talk about, whether it be me on a message or whether you've joined Discord and now you've found more people to talk about not just Chinese dramas but Asian dramas in general. I feel like that's one of my biggest rewards. I love it when people just drop into my DMs and just say, oh my gosh, I watched a drama that you recommended and I loved it. I fell in love with the characters. I had such a good time watching it. Or when people drop into my DMs and be like, oh, you recommended that drama, I really didn't enjoy it, or something like this. And I just love that. I feel like that's so rewarding in itself. So yeah, in 1 year time, by this time next year, I hope to have built an even bigger community of people to talk Asian dramas with. I hope the podcast keeps growing and, the sky's the limit, and I don't think it'll ever become a full-time job. I wish it could. I really do. I don't think it will, even though it is a lot of effort and it is a lot of work. But again, I enjoy doing it. So until then, while it's still fun and while I still love doing it, I will very much keep doing it. So yeah, that is it. That is all the questions. I had so much fun doing this episode. I feel like there was really, really good, interesting questions. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I don't know. I feel like I don't even know how to sign off because I will be signing off for a little while now. Again, it won't be very long because I'll start to miss it and I'll want to come back. I think it will be like a 4-week break. So I will be back October time. In that case, there is 50 other episodes for you to check out. I will definitely still, if you want to keep up with my currently watching and all of that, I will very much be posting stuff like that on TikTok and on Instagram and the socials. So check those out. Everything is linked down in the description. If you want to chat directly to me, DM on Instagram, or if you want to join the community, come and join the Tea and Soju Discord server. There's lots of people there to sort of chat dramas with. And yeah, and if you'd like to keep listening to more content, go check out Patreon. I will definitely be posting a lot more on there, especially this month that I'll be away from the main podcast. And lastly, if you've got any ideas, or there's a specific topic you'd like me to talk about or anything like that, please come and drop that on my Instagram, email, wherever it may be. Because again, I'll be planning season 2, so I'll be very open to all and any ideas. So let me know. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope life is treating you well in your corner of the world. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Want to find an Asian drama community? Then join the Tea and Soju Discord server, where we chat everything from C-dramas to K-dramas to J-dramas. To chat with me, check out any of the socials. Please help the podcast by rating, viewing, and subscribing wherever you listen to help others find this little corner. Lastly, consider joining Patreon to further support the podcast and receive extra content. All of the links are in the episode description. That's it. This has been another episode of the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and I'll see you next week for more C-Drama chatter.